Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. My name is Jack Roth, your real estate agent, your podcast host, and today I think I'll be a storyteller. There's not a ton of news to go over. There is a slight update on mortgage rates, but we do that every week, and so we will cover those at some point. But I have a story for you today that actually happened today. You know, it's funny because I woke up in a fantastic mood, which is rare for me. I'm not a morning person, but I woke up early this morning because I had a showing out in Forney. And if you're unfamiliar with the Metroplex, the DFW Metroplex. Forney is kind of on the southeast side of things. It's a quick growing suburb, city, whatever you want to call it. A lot has been built there in the last 5 years, and a lot of people are moving there. And I've got this client who wants to lease a home in Forney. We had set up a showing for this house a couple days ago. I got it scheduled a couple days ago. So keep in mind, everything in here was scheduled in advance. So I wake up this morning. I had been referred this client by my apartment locator that I partner with. And she said, hey, I've got this client. I don't do private rentals. Do you want to take her on? Also, I really want to learn more about the residential side of things. So do you mind if I kind of shadow you? And I said, of course. Yeah, I love to teach. I love to kind of show my expertise in this field. Come along. It'll be fun. And this client is out of town, so it's a virtual showing, so it's going to be super easy, a really good teaching moment for her. On, I believe it was Wednesday, I got this scheduled, this showing scheduled. And she just wanted to see one house. This client just wanted to see one house, which is fine. I try and usually bundle a few together if I'm driving far, because Forney is about 45-50 minutes from where I live, depending on traffic. And if you're familiar with DFW, you know that traffic is crazy. We get this thing scheduled, and I start driving out there this morning. I think our appointment was like 10:30, 10:45. I'm getting close to Forney, and I was getting excited. I was in a great mood. I was listening to a good podcast this morning on the way over there that had some good things in it. I pull up to the house. I check my showing instructions and my access details, and it says that the lockbox is on the gas meter. So I kind of walk around the house, found the gas meter, found the lockbox, got it opened. Everything's going pretty smooth so far. I'm right on time. I'm taking pictures of the neighborhood. I'm walking, taking some videos for this client because she's out of town right now. I get to the front door. I've got the key in my hand. I put it in the lock. I unlock it. I go to open the front door. It does not budge. And I said, okay, maybe I twisted the key the wrong way. Maybe I don't know. You got to try a couple times at some of these houses. You never know what you're kind of walking into, so to speak. I put the key in again, twist it the other way, and then it sounds like the door locks. And I said, that can't be right. So I tried a few more times. I'm jiggling the door. I'm playing with the key, trying to get something to work here. And I came to the conclusion it's got to be deadbolted from the inside. So I said, okay, let me see where the gate is. I'm going to go through the backyard and see if I can't just walk in through the back door. And so I found the gate, got that opened, walked around the backyard. And I'm always really cautious when I have to do that, when I have to go in kind of the alternate way. Because I don't know what the situation is. I haven't seen this house before. The pictures on the MLS, it was literally just an outside picture, so I had no idea if it was occupied or vacant, what the deal was. So I'm kind of like cautiously walking through the backyard like, hey, it's Jack. I'm a real estate agent here to show the house. Talking to myself like a crazy man. And I said, man, I really hope this key works in the back door. So I put it in the handle first, put the key in the handle first, and it works perfectly. Got the handle unlocked. And I said, smooth. This is our way in. We're just going through the back door. Nothing but a little hiccup. I'm maybe 2-3 minutes behind at this point. But again, my client's out of town. Told her I was going to be taking pictures and videos. So there's not really a rush on my end of things. Take the key out, put it in the deadbolt. Fits perfect. I said, oh my God, we're golden. This is it. Twist it. Unlocks. I said, great. Go to open the door. Doesn't budge. I said, what the fuck am I missing? Am I insane? I said, God, okay. So I put them back in the keyholes and I'm, playing with it, trying to see. Same thing, dead bolted from the inside. And so I said, okay, the front door is dead bolted from the inside and the back door is dead bolted from the inside. There's not really another way into this house unless I go through the garage. However, I don't have a garage opener because I don't live here. And so I said, all right, let me call the agent. And I'm trying to text my apartment locator, updates the whole time, trying to see where she's at. I'm like, I know you're driving far. Here's the situation. We're going to figure something out. And she's not responding because she's driving. But I've got my phone in my hand trying to look at showing instructions, see if I missed something, try and be as thorough as I can before I call this listing agent. I said, I don't think it's a me issue. And And so I call the listing agent, doesn't pick up. Call him again, doesn't pick up. So I sent him a text. I said, hey, this is Jack. I'm with Remax. I'm trying to show your house right now. Key's not unlocking anything. I think that both doors are dead bolted from the inside. What can we do? Because I need to show this to my client. I'm going to advocate for my client. He texts back a few minutes later and says, let me see what's going on. So I go, it's humid as hell today here too. It's so hot, so humid. So I'm like sweating. I look disgusting. And I said, all right, I'm just going to go sit in my truck with the AC on. I'm kind of just, playing on my phone, looking at Facebook, trying to pass some time, kind of starting to stress out a little bit because it's, 11:10 at this point. And I'm like, okay, this is taking a while. So I text him back and I said, any update? And he says, the previous tenants are talking. I said, okay. 10 minutes goes by. 15 minutes goes by, 20 minutes goes by. I said, any update? And he said, the tenant deadbolted all the doors from the inside, left through the garage. He has the garage opener. I'm trying to see if he can drop it off. I said, oh my gosh, okay. So it's like 11:30 at this point. The appointment's supposed to be wrapping up at this point, and I have not even gotten into the house. So I said, okay. A couple more minutes goes by. I said, can I meet him somewhere? Can I meet this tenant somewhere to pick up the garage opener? What can I do to help rectify the situation? And this agent, and I'm not going to name this agent because that's not my thing. This agent was the least helpful person on the planet. He basically just said, sorry, you need to reschedule. I can't help you. And I texted him back and I said, you realize we scheduled this 3 days in advance, right? There's not much else that I can do. I need to show this today. How can I make that happen? And he just said, sorry, not happening. It got me thinking because I said, okay, first of all, it's kind of an asshole response, not oh, let me help you. Let me see what I can do. Let me see if I have a spare garage opener. But I was like, no, that's kind of an asshole response. And so I said, all right, well, what can we do? So I called my client and I said, here's the situation. We're locked out. Listing agent has refused to help us. They told me to reschedule and come back another day, but we just drove an hour to get here. So I'm not going to waste my time out here. Let me see if I can find you a couple other properties in the area that are similar that might fit your criteria. And so I get on the MLS, and at this point, my apartment locator had showed up. She's trying to learn the ropes of residential real estate because it's very different from apartment locating. And I said, this is a terrible introduction. It's not a very fun introduction, but it is a very real situation that I run into, unfortunately, fairly commonly. She was like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad, blah, blah, blah. I just drove all the way out here. I referred you this client. This is a nightmare. I said, this is not your fault. This is literally the listing agent's fault. Who doesn't have a spare garage opener or a key or a set of instructions for, tenants when their job is to represent that tenant or that client and that property to their best interest. I said, this is not your fault. And so we're kind of coming up with a solution. She's on the phone with the client as well because they're friends. And she just kind of told her the same thing of like, hey, we're looking for other properties. We're going to find some other things that are similar in the area. Just give us a couple minutes. Thankfully, the MLS rolled out a new app this year. I think it's called MLS Go. And so I could get onto the MLS with my phone. And I looked up properties. And thankfully, since Forney is growing so fast, there are just a ton of rental properties in the area. And so I'm, scrolling through my phone like a madman. I have two phones. I've got one for work and one for personal. I'm on my personal phone, like looking at Zillow, trying to find things too with an MLS number. And I'm on my work phone on the mobile MLS, just looking, see if I can, schedule an appointment because it's so immediate. The only houses I could show were vacant and listed as show and go and not listed with a property management company because those usually require a couple of days notice. It's kind of a pain in the ass to get those scheduled. It's always just a nightmare. I'm looking, finally found a house that said, go and show, vacant, ready to lease. And I said, perfect. Scheduled it. Told my apartment locator, I said, we're going to this house. It's similar enough. I think she'll like it. Let's just see what we can do. So we drive, 5 minutes over through the neighborhood, go to that house. We get in there. It's beautiful. It looks good and everything, but there's no appliances. There's no washer and dryer. There's no refrigerator, like nothing in there. And I was like, okay, well, that's not ideal, but at least it's a house that I can send her videos of and pictures of and stuff. We FaceTimed the client. We said, oh my God, we're so sorry. Here's this house, kind of walked her through it and everything. And then we got to talking. Started talking about financials because typically what I like to do is, schedule a showing with the client. And as we're walking through the property, we'll kind of go over everything. That's kind of my screening. I like to do it in person. I think that it builds a little bit better rapport, and I think that helps build that relationship on a solid foundation of trust. I showed up to your showing, you showed up to your showing. We're off to a good start. Everybody's happy and kind of hopeful. We're looking at a new start essentially. And so we start talking about financials and qualifications and stuff. And the more that this client talks, the more this pit in my stomach starts growing. And she starts talking about all this stuff. Credit is subprime. It's like, mid fives. Boyfriend's credit, low sixes. Income does not support qualifications. There's criminal history somewhere in there. And I'm just sitting there on the phone, kind of just doing this. I'm just like, oh my gosh. Trying to remain hopeful. But I said, I'm racking through my brain of, okay, what can I do to apply myself in this situation that's going to be beneficial to this client? And so I start thinking about, the guidelines for an FHA loan. And I said, hey, client, if you were able to, if it was possible, if I could make this possible for you, would you be interested in buying a house? Because to be blunt with you, from what you've told me so far, I don't know that you or your boyfriend are going to qualify for a lease just because of how stringent they are and how strict everything is. It's going to be really tough. We can apply and just apply to one or two and see what happens. If you get accepted, great. But if not, we need a backup plan. And I think at this point, a backup plan might be buying, honestly. And she thought about it for a minute and she said, yeah, you know what? Honestly, we've been kind of thinking about buying. We just didn't know if we were able to or if we could qualify for that. I said, perfect. Let me hook you up with one of my lenders. He's in office. I work with him in my office. He's super quick to respond. And so I called him and I said, here's the situation. What do you think? What can you do? He was super optimistic about it, super, super positive. And he said, let me get on the phone with them. I'm going to go over some more details. I told him everything that I could, everything that I knew from this client. He said, I'm going to get on the phone with them, go over some more details, and let's see what we can come up with. And I said, okay, perfect. So this day's starting to turn around a little bit. We wrap up this virtual showing. We're out in Forney for an hour and a half longer than I needed to be. I have a ton of stuff to get done today, and I did not need that little holdup. But I figured, I got in the car and I figured, it's not for nothing. If I can have this conversation with a buyer or with a client, and turn them into a buyer, all the better. So I get driving down the freeway and I get a text from my lender. It says, had a great conversation with your client. We're going to have them fill out an application tonight. So even though it was a kind of a shit show, terrible start to the morning with getting locked out of a house, I am pretty happy with the outcome of today. This career is such a peaks and valleys kind of career. The highs are really high and the lows are really low. And there are points in time in this career where it is so frustrating to deal with other people. Being a bit of a control freak myself, it is so frustrating when other people are not on their game and they're not on top of things. I was just, super, super frustrated, but trying to keep a positive mentality. I said, this is nothing but a hiccup today. I'm still going to have a great day. I'm still going to get home and record a good episode. I actually wrote out a whole list of things yesterday while I was working, and I kind of looked at it right before I sat down to do this. And I said, none of that's super interesting, honestly. There's nothing in there that really piques my interest. And I told you guys a couple weeks ago, I think it was 2 episodes ago, that I wanted to start getting into some more conversational kind of storytelling type podcasting, because it's really hard to sit here and talk to myself. I'm looking at myself in my computer monitor right now, and it's really intimidating to have all these lights and everything, microphones and whatnot. It's good practice. I think that it kind of translates into almost an interview style conversation, but it's like an introspective interview. So it's really interesting to do that. I was looking at that list of topics that I wanted to do yesterday when I wrote everything out and got all my sources ready. And I just was not super inspired. I wasn't feeling it. I didn't feel like any of that was going to be super interesting to you guys. So I kind of figured I would go through a day in the life of, type situation. Day in the life of trying to find a private rental for somebody and kind of the trials and tribulations that we go through as real estate agents, because it's not always perfect. I think that on a lot of people's social media, they're going to portray kind of this brand image of like perfection and always being on top of the game and everything like that, especially in a client-facing service like real estate. You always got to have the big smile on your face. Everything's got to look like it's going your way. But the reality of the situation is that sometimes, you can't control the actions of others. And you're just going to have those days where you wake up feeling like, oh, today's the day. And then it goes to hell in a handbasket faster than you can blink. Yeah, I kind of just wanted to bring some, reality to the podcast and some real life scenario that I go through fairly often, I might add. Being a real estate agent is not all sunshine and rainbows like you would see online. It is a tough job. It's a people job, and you got to know how to stand your ground, which I'm still very much learning how to do. I'm terrible at standing my ground, for myself at least. I'm a little bit better about it when it's my client's money involved. I have no problem standing up for them, but standing up for yourself and I was thinking about that when that agent texted me and pretty much just said, sorry, got to reschedule. It's not going to happen. I was just like, oh my gosh, maybe this would be a fun little story to tell on the podcast. But I did want to go over mortgage rates because there is some relevant news regarding those. Rates hit the highest mark since November of last year. They hit 7.21% on average yesterday on Thursday, and this was due to an economic report that came out from ADP. And rates, I believe they came back down a little bit towards the end of the day. I think they closed out around 6.81%, but we are still at the highest interest rate of this year, and so that is going to, I think, scare a lot of people. Having been in the sixes, people are used to that six figure. For it to peak into the sevens yesterday was a little bit frightening. I think it's definitely going to slow demand a little bit, but I don't know if one day is going to have a massive effect or anything like that. Typically, there's a 60-day delay with any news or events that happen in real estate. There is a federal decision, being held on July 26th, later this month, where they are going to discuss raising interest rates again to fight inflation, because we are flying a little bit too close to that 2% mark, and they're trying to keep us right at that 2%. So we will see what happens. I'm a little bit nervous for that decision to come out, because if they do raise interest rates again, I think that it's going to outprice a lot of buyers in this current market, just with the way that prices are not falling nearly enough to justify rates increasing into the mid sevens or anything like that if they raise the basis points, 0.25 or 0.5, whatever it may be. So that's all speculation for now. If you take anything from this, just be aware that decision is happening on the 26th of July later this month, and that it does not affect you today as you're listening to this podcast. There was inventory rates mentioned in my content that I wanted to do earlier. Inventory rates are half of what they were pre-pandemic in 2019, but I feel like we all kind of knew that already. I think I've covered that in the last 5 or 6 episodes, so I'm kind of tired of reporting on that one. Until there's a significant change, I'm probably not going to mention it too many more times. But like I said, I do try and go over mortgage rates every week, because I feel like it is such a sore spot for a lot of people right now that we kind of need to stay on top of it and stay advised on those things and stay informed. But yeah, guys, I just really wanted to kind of make this a conversational type podcast today, a little bit of storytelling to see how I could do with that side of things. I think that it's definitely a lot more interesting than kind of just reporting and repeating facts that I read on the internet or the news sources or whatever it may be. Oh, there was one other thing that I did want to mention that's actually super important to me. We hit a huge milestone in the podcast both today and this week. So today is the 10th episode of the podcast, which I think is pretty cool. We hit double digits, and it's been a huge testament to my commitment to this podcast, because I really do enjoy doing it. Some Fridays I wake up, it's kind of the last thing on my mind. I've got a busy day ahead of me or whatever it may be, and I really just don't want to record the podcast, but I force myself to sit down and do it because I told you guys that I would. And even though some episodes are not as concise or as well put together as others, I still really do like it. once I get to the end of it and I'm editing everything and I'm, now I've added this video component, it's really interesting, kind of the creative process that goes behind it. I'm learning how to budget my time and schedule everything so that I'm ready a couple days in advance rather than just trying to wing it. Yeah, the podcast turns 10 today, I guess we could say. But the other thing is that the podcast has now received over 100 views, across platforms. So we've got Spotify, Apple Podcast, I think iHeartRadio, there's a few other ones. And then with my YouTube video going out last week, we have surpassed that 100 views mark, which to a lot of people, that might be a relatively small number in, the world of social media. But that YouTube video alone, it got 40 views in the last week. My goal was to get 5 views on it. So we got, 8 times the amount of views that I was really hoping to get, which I'm incredibly happy about. And, for YouTube, 40 views, it's nothing for the algorithm to pick up or whatever. But I'm not doing it for the algorithm necessarily. I really just want to put these out and have kind of a face to the voice behind this podcast. But I was reading a post on Perspective the other day about, just YouTube in general, trying to learn the strategy involved with that whole side of things and that social media platform. But somebody said, if every view on your video was a person in your home, would you be, surprised? I was thinking about that this morning when I woke up, just super happy it's podcast day. I was just super happy. I've been really working hard on all of this. And I said, oh my gosh, if there were 40 people in my apartment, I don't even think I could fit 40 people in my apartment. My apartment's only 800 square feet. I don't think I could fit 40 people if I tried. I could open the door and have, 5 or 10 stand out on the balcony and shove a few in the bathroom and maybe have one stand in the shower. I said, it feels good. I hit both and 8 times my goal. And if 40 people were in my apartment, I think I'd be having a panic attack because I have social anxiety and there's no way that I would ever invite 40 people into my apartment. But it's all just interesting to get perspective on those sort of things from people that have kind of gone through the struggles of building up a channel or whatever it may be. And I wouldn't even say that, I'm not doing this because I want to be a YouTuber. I want to do it just for exposure, really, and marketing and everything like that. But I just want to extend a huge thank you to everybody that has listened to, will listen to, and is currently listening to this podcast. It truly does mean a lot to me. For every view that I get or every listen or download that I get, it's just, I feel like I've succeeded once more. So thank you guys. I'm going to wrap up this episode and get to editing this so that I can work on the rest of my marketing for this week. If y'all have any questions, comments, concerns, or feedback for me, make sure you let me know in the comments section, the Q&A section on Spotify. Leave a like. If you could rate this podcast, that would be fantastic as well. Hate asking for those things, but they are important and they do help me build some credibility here on these different platforms. So I would appreciate it. Anyways, I hope you guys are having the best Friday ever, leading into the best weekend ever. I will see you next week.
Yes!